Well, hello there. Most rooms hate your big speakers. Let's try to understand it, shall we?
We are the silverbacks. Hear that thunder roll. In the tweeters, heart in the stroll. High, great again. No strings to pull. Join the sound, feel the truth, let the music. The sound believers, wave receivers, nature's friends and truth achievers. We build, we play, we give it back. We are the mighty silverbacks.
You did it for deeper bass and for more headroom, right? Everything was supposed to be awesome. But now they're in your living room and they're producing awful bass that smears your sound. The timing drags. The music feels like it's fighting the room instead of flowing through it. The good feeling is gone. What the hell is going on? That, my audiophile friends, is what this explainer is all about. Oh, and the awesome setting here? I'm taking several weeks off to recharge the batteries, no larger projects and no reviews planned for the next 3 weeks. The music I enjoy on holiday is blasting from Radio Dismuke. It's an internet radio station taking us back to the simpler, more romantic times of the 20s and the 30s while barbecuing. Instead of reviews, I will be serving you a couple of audiophile explainer videos suggested by the awesome channel patrons. It will all be done right here from my favorite beach spot in For All Good and Bad. By the end of this video, I will have argumented a case that sounds like heresy on an audiophile channel. And that is, for most of us in normal homes, smaller speakers, in many cases, will give you a more balanced and a more enjoyable musical experience. And choosing to live without the deepest bass, what I call sub-bass celibacy, might be the smartest, most practical decision in all of hi-fi for a number of reasons. Here's the thing nobody tells you at the dealer. Below a certain frequency, you're not really listening to your speakers anymore. You're listening to your room. The wavelengths, a 30 hertz tone is more than 11 meters long. Sending that kind of sound wave into a small room is like putting a whale in a bathtub. It's called standing waves. The wave bounces between your walls and piles up in some corners and cancels in others. And in an untreated room, certain bass notes can be boosted by 20, maybe 30 decibels.
Bada-boom.
Your bathtub is small. The whale sloshes, okay? It's not a subtle thing. It's 11 meters of unhappy whale trashing around in a tub, soaking everything above it, coloring the whole sound, murdering the clarity and the timing, and playing one note really loud, always the same note over your entire music collection.
I am a little disappointed.
Maybe you go, then I'll just treat the room. Yeah, that's a lovely idea, man. But here's the catch. To absorb a bass wave with a simple absorber, the material needs to be roughly a quarter of the wavelength thick. For 30 hertz, that's almost 3 meters of absorber. 3 meters. That's donating a room or something to your acoustics. So realistically, you have two options. Option one, pull the speakers far out from the walls to reduce boundary enforcement. Ask the rest of the household how popular that is.
I hate you more!
Then there's option two, that is room correction, room adaptation, multiple subwoofers and serious treatment, which cost real money, real time, and real domestic negotiations.
Come on, stop it. Come on, not in front of your friends. Come on.
And then some diehard purists recoil at that very thought of DSP touching their signal. However illogical that might be, it's very real to them. Both roads lead somewhere, but Both of them are also very long. And there's a third door most people never consider. If we trade the whale for a dolphin, let's say, in that bathtub, small speakers physically cannot pump serious energy into the deepest octaves. And this one fits the water. The dolphin doesn't slosh. The dolphin swims. It's fast, it's agile, it turns on a dime, and that's exactly what the music does. Suddenly you have tight timing, a clean mid-range, and no bass mod smeared across it. And balance that just falls into place without jumping through hoops. This is sub-bass celibacy, but it comes with a bonus most people never hear about. Small cabinets have narrow front baffles as well. Sound waves wrap around big cabinet edges like water around a boulder. They create little time smears and ripples that blur the stereo image. A narrow baffle means less of that turbulence, which is part of why small speakers so often throw that precise, three-dimensional soundstage we all chase. You can say the dolphin, as it turns out, also does tricks. Less speaker, less problem, more music. In fairness, if you want the whale, you need the ocean too. I'm not here to tell you that big speakers are a scam or a big problem or anything like that. All spectacular when the room and setup are right, or you are using some form of DSP correction. The physics also cuts both ways. If you want to move enough air at 30 or 20 hertz at realistic levels with low distortion, it really requires some big drivers and cabinets and lots of power. Take the compact Radiant Acoustic 6.2, for example. It plays surprisingly deep and satisfying bass through those clever passive radiators. But when you push it hard in a big room, say as for 100 dB peak, the small drivers simply run out of excursion in the lowest octaves. That's the end stops, my friend. That's not a flaw. That happens to be physics. And it kind of never negotiates. So if you have the dedicated room, the treatment, and the appetite for serious DSP, a full-range monster will reward you with something a small speaker never can. Be honest with yourself about which body of water you actually own, and you will get some help from your brain.
But won't I miss the deepest bass?
I hear somebody whisper. Most likely, but way less than you think. And this is the beautiful part, actually. Human hearing is very forgiving in the lowest octaves. If a speaker delivers a solid foundation around 40 to 50 hertz, just like the Radiant Acoustic 6.2s there, your brain does a stunning job of filling in the rest.
Everybody knows you never go full retard.
What do you mean?
It's the same trick that lets you recognize a bass line through a phone speaker. The brain reconstructs the fundamental it can't actually hear. And honestly, the deepest bass isn't where the melody lives. Down there, it's mostly pressure and weight, something you feel more than you hear. Nuance actually lives higher up, right where a good small speaker is at its very best. So, a well-designed speaker can still deliver a convincing sense of bass without ever trying to reproduce every last hertz and without exciting the room. Another thing about choosing a smaller doesn't mean you can't make it bigger later. A compact speaker you really love for its clarity can become a full-range system any day. Let's say you decide that you want more physical slam. In that case, I will almost always end up recommending to add 2 subwoofers placed in the boundary. The success of this is highly dependent on perfect tuning, and it often requires some DSP though. So for the purist there that shivers by the very thought, it might not be an option. In my own testing, 2 boundary subs brought around 15 dBs of extra headroom while letting the main speakers breathe freely. And boundary placement gives a much better timing and distribution, but has to be compensated for by some great DSP for perfect room adaptation. Think of it as bringing the whale back, but this time on your terms and totally beaten into submission. Trained, positioned, exactly where the room can handle it, and doing only the job you hired it for. That's a whole story of its own, the subwoofer thing. But the point today here on the beach is simple. Starting small closes no doors. It just gives you great sound right now instead of forcing you to solve every room mode problem before you're allowed to enjoy the music. In other words, choosing speakers that don't reach for 20 Hz is not settling. In real rooms, in real life, it's often the better balanced choice. You get cleaner, more musical sound with a fraction of the effort. And that, my friends, is making hi-fi great again to me. One practical, enjoyable room at the time. If this resonated with you and how you listen at home, drop your experiences in the comments. As always, hit those like and subscribe buttons to help spread the word. And remember, you can never be wrong if you just listen. See you on the next one.